This is a retake of episode 4.
From the beginning, isn't
I
it?
messed up and wasn't talking into the microphone. Let me just stretch. Right. Hello.
Hello.
You go.
Hello and welcome to the Proper Tea Podcast with Rebecca and Ruth as your hosts.
Yeah, we are sisters in business and in property, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about our journey through the different strategies that there are in property investment, and we'll explain what each one is, and our experiences and insights through moving through them all.
Yeah.
And then probably finishing with ultimately what our favorite strategy is. So we began with
Our property education, which we learnt a lot about distressed property.
Yeah.
So that's basically being able to, knowing how to add value to a property. We learnt a lot about creative financing to be able to do our to project finance our deals. And we learnt about HMOs. So the obvious choice to start with was HMOs, since we learnt a lot.
Distressed HMOs.
We learnt a lot about them.
Yeah. So we went out there and did a million viewings and put a million crazy offers on these properties, and we ended up.
We were offering so low.
Yeah.
Like so low, and we didn't understand why. We'd never bought a house before, so
Yeah.
we were offering like a joke low, and didn't understand why people weren't taking us seriously.
Well, no, I don't regret that at all. I would still do it. We still do it.
We were taught to do that,
Yeah.
so you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly. You don't ask, you don't get, but chances are they might say no. And that's why it's a numbers game. We kept doing lots of viewings and putting in lots of crazy offers.
And it was a great experience as well, because we'd never done, I definitely never did property viewings at the time.
Imagine we did like one viewing and then put in the offer and they said yes. What's there to learn?
But I didn't know anyone when we were at university buying a house.
There's you need to build some thick skin when you start a business or property investing or both. I guess it is a business.
Yeah. Few tears.
Yeah. And also appreciate that there's going to be a journey of you being all emotionally attached to a house and be like, yeah, this is the one. Yeah, this is going to be the game changer. Yeah. And then it falls through. And then you're like, you know what? It wasn't meant to be. And just going through all the mindsets that you have to move
Remembering that
through.
you're not buying for yourself.
No.
You're buying it as an investment. Of course, you don't want to buy a completely rubbish house that you can add value to. But it's not a house that you're going to live in.
No,
so you cannot get
home.
Emotionally attached.
Yeah, there's no point. It's an investment. It's a business. You're providing a home for someone else, not you. So that was the biggest emotional learning curve. Yeah. But yeah, regarding strategies, our first strategy, because we learnt about it, was HMOs. So we began with 2 HMOs once because we had 2 offers accepted
at the same time, and it took months to get an offer accepted. Yeah.
That's why we just said yes to both, because we were like,
when will we get this opportunity again?
We would, but we didn't know
because it was the first time.
Yeah, so we did 2 HMOs, and we got the first one was it was haunted. That's another podcast. But it was a probate house. Yeah. So whoever lived in it had died, which is why it was haunted. I swear. I'm really tempted to go into that now, but I'm going to resist.
We did have someone that was we'd done it up and then they were kicking down the fence. I don't think they wanted us there.
No. Yeah, there was so it was a probate house. The relative had died, and the family who the house belonged to, the family who didn't inherit the house were mad that we had purchased the house, and every time we put up fencing they would kick it down.
And we gave them back their wardrobe.
We let them go in the house and take whatever they wanted that belonged to their relative. We didn't have to, but it was it was a neighborhood that wasn't desirable, let's put it that way, and that meant that there was some very emotionally aggravated relatives nearby who just didn't approve of the process of the fact that their deceased relative hadn't planned for them to inherit
the house.
So they took it out on us. But anyway, that was another learning curve. everything's so like about the human experience and how like our emotions sort of can just throw spanners in like the works, and you just have to like always have room for stuff like that to happen. But
contingency on emotion.
Yeah, emotion contingencies. Anyway, so that house was a really rundown house.
We put a new kitchen in it, new bathroom,
new kitchen, new bathroom.
Redid the electrics,
and we put a new bedroom downstairs.
New boiler, yeah.
So that was a 3-bed house.
Turned it into
like
a 4.
2-bed. It was like a 2-bed, and it had a study, but we turned it into a 4-bed house.
Yeah.
And then it was positioned really close to
a super
hospital and
the
bus
large
stop
like
and stuff.
loads of
big supermarket.
There was a lot of it ticked every box of why we would be looking in the area.
So our goal was nurses, but it ended up being a mixture of people. We had young professional students and nurses living in that house, and then like literally 2 minutes up the road, that was the other house that had our offer accepted on. And it was actually quite convenient because it meant that we could work on both properties quite easily at the same time.
And it meant that we could have tradesmen going, like they wasn't far up the road, so it meant we could have tradesmen working on both properties.
For a favourable rate because we gave them 2 projects at once. And we didn't immediately put in a new kitchen in that property.
No, but we did add an ensuite.
We did add an ensuite upstairs. So it was a 3-bed house, and we turned it into a 5-bed house. It was a large house, and it had lots of room inside to sort of rejig the layout to accommodate more people. We just added more. Well, we added the ensuite.
It had a lot of space. It has just a nice lot of space for a communal living.
Yeah.
Later down the line, we did change the kitchen, but we didn't have the money at the time to be able to do that.
Our budget, because we didn't anticipate doing 2 at once. We had to work with our budget.
We did experience cowboy painters at that property.
Oh, yeah. That was a big learning curve with contractors.
Yeah. God, it was awful.
But we learned a lot.
Yeah, we learned a lot. And then, like, when you're young, you don't know, and you've never had. When you're young and you don't like people, people really didn't take us seriously. We didn't know when we were getting the best rate or not. This was our first time using tradesmen. Even if we got quotes from different people, we didn't know because, I mean, less so, like, even if you had a referral from a friend, like, we didn't have anyone else that was investing in property to even ask for their own tradesmen.
No, we just kind of had to like
wing it.
But we had one tradesman, and we paid him like, was it half?
Installments.
It was installments, like, but he like went on holiday immediately. We were like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
He just went on holiday.
We didn't know when he was finishing the job.
No, it was just dragging on, and we were like,
and he was bringing like some young people to do the job, but it was so messy.
Yeah,
we didn't have anything to compare it to, but we knew it probably wasn't right.
Yeah, gut feel. Trust your gut, especially as a lady.
Some people say don't, but as women, I if it's emotional, I don't care. Like, it's always proven right.
Yeah, it's always right. So our guts were like, this doesn't feel good. We feel like we're being taken for a ride. When he went, like, we weren't being listened to. As soon as you pay, they stop entertaining you because they've obviously like achieved their goal, and that's you giving them money with this particular cowboy builder anyway. And then there were issues right after that when we weren't pleased with the work, and
got ghosted.
Yeah, didn't repeat. Really awful. But seek reputable contractors, like, and really vet them and compare quotes and check out their work. I felt like we did get quotes and check out their work, and we've gone through all the stages, but you can't be too careful because he was doing really nice projects in like nice areas. So, and it was recommended by a friend. Well, a colleague, someone else we know, who was vaguely in the industry.
Yeah.
Or like was another contractor basically.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they necessarily knew that person that well.
But we didn't know otherwise.
So I can't point fingers too much, and you could do all the steps. I felt like we did, and still be taken for a ride. So just be super careful.
Yeah.
Make sure you really are feeling comfortable. Listen to your gut. If you don't think a particular person could be a contractor, could be anyone, is making
it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, you question.
I mean, now that we're like a lot older, or we're a decade older, that it's a lot easier for us to go no. Like we're a lot more.
We're like no.
Yeah, no. It doesn't.
There's other options out there.
Exactly.
I think we felt a little bit like under pressure to make things work quickly. Because
from also our education, it's like there's a timeline when you need to get it rented out because you want to be making income, so you don't want to be waiting months and months on end.
Paying for a mortgage for an empty house.
Exactly. And we also paid for education. We want to be able to make that back as
quickly. A lot was on the line. Yeah. So we wanted it done quickly, so we were acting desperately, but really that could cost you.
Yes, don't do that.
Sounds really obvious. Don't act too desperately, because I think people can also smell that on you.
We're just like, we really want to make it work.
Yeah. And then so after that experience with HMOs, they are bread and butter. They're like buy-to-lets now with families in them. We don't do HMOs anymore for those particular properties. Do we? No, we do.
Yeah, we do. But just not as many.
We do, yeah. Some of them have been converted to buy-to-let to accommodate a family. Some of them have remained as shared housing. So yeah, those were our two first HMOs.
The difference is that we just don't manage them.
Yeah. We do have another one, and that is a shared house.
Yeah.
Not had any issues with that.
No, great, that one. And you know why?
It was our third one we had experience.
Yeah. But not just that, it's because it's on one tenancy.
Yeah, one tenancy
so they're
agreement makes a difference.
They move their own friends in. You don't have to vet more people.
Yeah.
That's a big lesson.
Yeah, that was it. That was the benefit. That's a shared housing sort of setup. And it was a game changer. And then we were including bills before, and now we don't, because we used to do it because it made our listing our properties online when they needed renting more appealing, because a lot of people like an all-inclusive sort of situation. But obviously utility bills go up and down. If you're a tenant and you're not the one paying for it, it's easier for you to sort of not be as considerate about energy, how you're using energy at home. Whereas if you are responsible for paying your own bills, you're going to be a lot more considerate because it's your own cost.
It's definitely appealing for students, but we don't do students anymore. But it's definitely, students don't want to have to think about...
We do students sometimes, but they're used to, they agree that they have to take care of their own expenses. 19 minutes. It's okay. Yeah. So serviced accommodation was next up. We thought, okay, this is a really great opportunity for us to explore with something that's a bit creative. So I did a degree in geography with tourism. Ruth did a degree in fine art. We were like, okay,
put
hospitality
two and two together.
And pretty things, mush. Maybe this is our calling. And it was very appealing
because it was something new, and it was like a direction into property that we felt all creative excitement about.
Yeah, definitely. It was exciting, the Airbnb boom, I guess.
Yeah,
kind of through.
If you're a naturally creative person, it's such a fun. You feel like you're doing fun projects, whereas in buy-to-lets, HMOs, it is what it is.
Basic. Beige neutral carpet. It's not as fun, whereas a serviced accommodation.
Well, so you say what my analogy is buy-to-lets are index funds, and serviced accommodation is what's it?
Day trading.
Yes.
Well, to be honest, I've not had any experience with day trading, so I don't really know. But serviced accommodation, just to clarify, is basically short-term letting. So there is no tenancy agreement involved. You just have a guest. They're not really a tenant, they're guests, and they pay a nightly rate. And that is
There's different rules with guests and tenancies.
Yeah. So the other appeal with the serviced accommodation is we'd had our fair share of experiences with difficult tenants in the past who were not paying rent and continued living, and it was a lot of headache having to chase
even tenants
them.
that would I remember in the past we've had tenants that would leave, and that's why you always have a deposit, because if they don't pay the rent,
you keep the deposit. It's not ideal, but there is a lot of rights towards the tenants than there are for the landlord. To be honest,
you can see why a lot of landlords have gone into service accommodation, because they're sick of the fact that there's not that many rights.
Yeah, so it meant like it was just less risk for the landlord to have a guest stay and pay a nightly rate. And if they acted up or acted out of sorts, then it was easier to remove them from the premise, whereas a tenant could technically like squat in a house.
They're not tied into a contract.
Yeah, they could squat there and not pay rent for months on end before the landlord gets to see any of that. Like, can do really much anything about that, and they have to start legal proceedings, which are usually on the cost of the landlord. And then for the entire period that is happening, and it takes a really long time, that landlord is out of pocket for that whole period of time. So there's a lot of appeal for serviced accommodation, because if somebody acts up or like is causing
a ruckus
or is being
cheeky
for the word selection,
I don't know what the words
it's much easier to be like, okay, we're not you're gonna have to leave now. And obviously there's ways for people to squat in a serviced accommodation, but it's easier to remove them legally. Anyway, the other appeal is, besides creativity, the reduced risk that comes with having guests as opposed to tenants. The third thing is it can be a lot more lucrative.
Yeah, but you are paying for the difference is that you are paying for the bills.
Yeah,
that is your responsibility, but you are able to make a lot of money at the same time.
Yeah, so you can make up to 50% more as a serviced accommodation.
Obviously, this can be seasonal.
Very seasonal. So, yeah, it can be really seasonal. Usually winter period from like...
It's a low season.
October to October. That was really silly.
Bro, October is proper.
Until... March is pretty dead. And you have to, and then summertime is the peak season. Depending on location, I think you can sort of optimize your serviced accommodation by trying to attract long-term tenants during the winter, like during the quieter periods.
Yeah, and also by doing that, you can also drop your prices a little bit.
Yeah, and like accept shorter stays. Usually our service accommodations have a minimum stay of like 3 nights.
Yeah, and then we have some that stay for like a month.
Yeah.
Or maybe a couple of months, which is quite nice. So anything that's like over 6 months is classed as
a proper, you need a tenancy agreement.
Yeah, you need an AST.
Yeah. But we really enjoyed doing our service accommodation. It was a time for us to really be creative and try and make something beautiful.
It's another step within property, so it just felt fitting.
But the greatest difference is it's a hospitality business. You are in hospitality, which requires 24-hour service.
It's different type of management.
Yeah. So our favorite type of property investment is the standard vanilla low maintenance buy-to-let.
Yeah.
That is our favorite. I think
that we've gone through like a curve.
Yeah.
So I'd say in our 20s, when we're a lot of a higher risk taking, we take higher risks when you're younger. And so we definitely went straight into HMOs, into SAs, and now we're in our 30s. Our lifestyle and what we want from our life has completely changed, and we want more stability. And so this is why we've come from going up, and now we're going back to
bread and butter. Yeah. Because the HMOs and SAs are, I would say, on a scale of management levels and requiring your attention.
Yeah. Buy-to-lets is right at the bottom.
Buy-to-lets
They
is
are easy peasy. We never get problems.
No, but like rarely. And then there's HMOs, which is in the middle. And then there's serviced accommodation, which requires a lot of attention.
High risk.
Yeah. And
with the buy-to-lets, you know that people are able to make that their home. And I think that's why
they tend to stay there a lot longer.
Exactly.
And you know when your rent, like when your income's coming in.
Yeah.
You're not like serviced accommodation when you're like, guess it's winter.
Yeah.
The bookings aren't coming through, and you have to learn to sort of
we really, really believe
average out your income
as well. That like we're so glad that like our portfolio, you need to be able to have that cookie cutter base. You need to have the cookie cutter base before you delve into the higher risk strategies. And like we firmly believe that if you don't have a solid base at the bottom and then you go into higher risk strategies, then it's a lot of stress.
Yeah. So I would personally recommend, if you're beginning, get some stable buy-to-lets first, and then we deem HMOs and service accommodation as strategies that can supercharge your portfolio.
Obviously, everyone has a different opinion, but this is ours from our own experience.
Investing is such a personal decision, but that is what we feel like provides a sustainable portfolio, where you're not riding on the fluctuations of seasons that come with SA. Treat that one as like bonus income. But your buy-to-lets will always ride you out. Like when it was, when we were all locked in during the pandemic and we couldn't work, the strategy that the properties in our portfolio that supported us the whole way through were the buy-to-lets.
That was the turning point for us, I think.
Yeah.
We couldn't work in our other business, and our buy-to-lets were the ones that were keeping everything running.
Yeah, it's not like we could use our Airbnbs to accommodate people. I think we did rent them out to NHS.
Yeah,
at the time.
Yeah. We had longer stays in those properties.
They still worked, but it was like we didn't know, we didn't know. Whereas with the buy-to-lets, we knew that people were like the families were going to still needed to live there. Whereas the NHS sort of situation was like fortunate that we were able to help provide temporary accommodation when it was needed, but we had no idea. Airbnb had closed. We thought we couldn't even use, like those were going to just be empty properties. So yeah, recommend buy-to-lets at the bottom, lots of them.
Yeah.
They won't be the most profitable. You need to have lots of apples from the tree to make a difference to your lifestyle, but I would definitely look to get at least enough buy-to-lets to cover your basic costs of living.
If you want it's like the lower risk. The lower risk investment is the buy-to-lets.
And then get HMOs if you want, for less hands-on. They're like a little more hands-on management-wise.
Yeah. We know people who have
really thrive in HMOs.
Yeah. You need like 2 or 3, and then they manage it themselves, and then that's their income.
Sitting
and they're
pretty
happy.
Nice. Yeah.
They manage those tenants, and that's replaced the job. So like we said, that everyone's life circumstance and what they want from their life and what they want from their investment is just is so personal to them.
Or you can have tons of serviced accommodations and just spread them out. And if you're a little, I would say genuinely like risk averse, then that could really, if it works out well, then you can really be sitting pretty with that as well.
Yeah. But for us now, like we've done a lot of high risk for the last more than 10 years. And so we're ready in our 30s to just grow our portfolio and have more stability. That's our main goal now, because we really, really want to make our investments as easy as possible.
Yeah. So investing is a personal decision. That is the structure that we advise. Having lots of buy-to-lets, maybe sprinkle it with some HMOs, top it off with some service accommodation, but it's a very personal decision. You could thrive in one arena more than the others.
Some people only invest in service accommodation, but they have multiple ones of them and they manage it completely. And they love it. And they love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's worth trying them all eventually.
I mean, we have.
Yeah, and we now know for sure what we like and what we don't like as much. We're probably gonna do HMO and SA.
Yeah.
Definitely serviced accommodation again at some point in the future.
We
but
have an
more
idea.
as like
Yeah.
a unique stay as opposed to because a lot more regulations are coming in.
Which is great.
Which is good,
Important that it should be coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree that it should be coming in and standards should be coming into place.
It's too easy for people to get into service accommodation and not and be quite reckless.
Yeah, so I think it's a good thing, and we're probably going to approach it more as a unique stay sort of thing as opposed to
people staying for corporate like corporate people staying in like near the city centre or we've turned
a lot of our essays back into buy-to-let actually, including our flats in the city centre.
We sat down at the end of the year, and I think, personally, we were going to continue growing our service accommodation business, expanding that, and then we had a good sit down.
We checked the figures and the numbers don't lie. Some of them were we compared. I think that's the thing. That's the other point I want to make. The strategies, know all of them, or be aware of all of them. And if you are, that means you can adapt your existing properties to whatever's going to work for you best in the market at the time. So our city centre properties were doing amazingly well as serviced accommodation for the first couple of years. And then the last year we checked how well they were doing statistically against what they would perform like if they were just long-term tenancies.
Yeah, and forecasted the next year.
And it turns out they would have actually done better without the peaks and troughs that come with seasonality if they were just rented long-term and we weren't responsible for the bills anymore.
Yeah.
So we actually turned a lot of our serviced accommodations back into buy-to-lets. But I think that's the other good thing. Having had the experience of all those different strategies, we've adapted our properties to suit what works the best at the time.
Say that we now do social housing.
Oh yes, we do social housing. So some of our HMOs we've turned into social housing, and that is one of the best strategies as well, because it's essentially buy-to-let, but it's like a buy-to-let on a 3-year long lease arrangement that you guaranteed rent for, because a housing association or a charity or the council are going to be guaranteeing that rent.
And it ticks our box of the simpler strategy, but also it ticks the box because it's helping other people, it's helping vulnerable people, and it aligns better with our ethics.
So I think it's good to be aware of all the strategies so you can adapt when needed, because adaptability is so important for survival in your business.
That was the thing. You need to know that you always have an exit strategy with any of the properties that you buy. You cannot just rely on saying, this is going to be a SA forever, or this is going to be a HMO forever. You have to know that there's another way that you can rent out your property if it doesn't succeed. Even if you run all the numbers and everything says on paper that it will work, it may not. So you need to know that there is another option to be able to rent your property out in a different way.
And it still benefit you, or at least cover the costs of running. So then at least it's capitalizing in value as opposed to just costing you to own it. Adapt. The only constant is change. Oh my god.
But it's true.
So you need to adapt, and
like what worked for us 10 years ago doesn't work for us now. So
and the numbers never lie. Just investigate all the strategies. You could even apply all the ways you could run your property and do the numbers for every type of strategy. Say you had a house, you could see, okay, if I rented each room out individually and did bills included, how much would I profit? If I just did this on a shared tenancy, double check with some letting agencies and ask them how much, if I did this as a shared house, how much could I rent this property for? And then run the numbers and see if you can profit. Or always you check AirDNA and then be like, okay, is this a viable serviced accommodation? Am I in a good area? Am I allowed to run it as a serviced accommodation here? What does it cost to do it up so that it looks appealing online, so that I actually get bookings if I did all this? what sort of rent could I achieve with it? Does it work best as that? Or just take it back to basics and be like, okay, just as a basic buy to let, what could I earn, and what are the costs and pros and cons, and like,
it will say is there's enough demand for each strategy.
Yeah, so run all the numbers and make sure that you are picking the one that makes the most sense for your lifestyle, I guess.
You're the right, for how you want to invest.
Yeah, and
like I said,
what profits you the best,
yeah,
or serves your community the best. Make that decision based on comparing with the options that are available out there.
The whole point of like holding on to these properties and being able to adapt is because it's about you holding onto the asset for a long period of time. So you need to be able to adapt.
Yeah, because regardless of what the strategy is, that property is going to go up in value, because that's the law of nature.
Exactly. But you also want to know you're getting cash flow. Otherwise, you don't want to just be seeing that property and
you could have put that money in a stock and share then.
Yeah.
But the beauty of property is that it pays you now, and doesn't just and depreciates.
Yeah. And this is why we love it.
So yeah, we hope you have taken some little pearls of wisdom from our experience and all the strategies along the way. If you have a favorite strategy, do let us know. Or if you have a question, let us know. You can contact us. Best way is to send us a DM on Instagram at Honest Property Sisters. And we hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we really look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.